following is just a rough cut.
You're probably searching for a migraine solution, aren't you? Well, I solved mine using an engineering approach. And this might apply to you, perhaps many of you. You're about to witness for the first time the biological process of migraine, illustrated from its origin as an aura to pain. I'm a research engineer who became disenchanted with medical diagnoses, changing explanations, and medications, so I spent decades looking for better answers.
So what is an aura? Since auras vary and are dynamic, they are best illustrated in video simulations, like this one by Dr. Michael Cutrer at Mayo Clinic, which most closely represents what I am lucky enough to see for about a half an hour. It's a moving blind spot in my vision called a scotoma, usually preceded by a flickering or scintillating scotoma. But there are many variations of migraine associated with different causes, genes, and symptoms, and others may experience temporary disruptions in speech or smell or a tingling, which usually signals a coming migraine. However, visual auras like this one are the most precise surrogate measure for the migraine process. My own questions, initially as a suffering researcher, were what is an aura in scientific terms, what is its connection with the pain, and why are its characteristics so repeatable? To find answers, I've spent 60 years on 3 steps. First, recording over 1,600 personal episodes, then 2, organizing them by type, such as side, partial, scintillating, origin, direction, and then reverse engineering the cascade of events, and finally 3, developing a plausible explanation which led to a cure, for my particular type at least. Now to expand those stages. First, the history. I began documenting migraines in adolescence, and in 1995 started tenaciously illustrating every single one minute by minute while focusing on the X in a consistent manner as shown in this video by Marcus Dahlem. This has created more than 1,600 maps of timed aura progression, tabulated with more details as shown for 2017 and posted online for free use by anyone. Taken together, these maps reveal many useful clues. Each aura progression is limited to either the left or right visual field, opposite the headache side, by definition of migraine. And they repeat in fewer than a dozen general patterns year after year. Because most auras begin at a vague location and progress outward while widening, as was simulated in the Dahlem video, it can be difficult to quickly identify precisely where the origin point was. However, some move inward and shrink on the same path or curve, making it possible to resolve most origins within just a few millimeters on cortex, that is, central, or at a kink in a fold, which had never been noticed from others' few prior anecdotes or their post-headache aura memories. Altogether, this data created a bigger question. What is unique about these locations on the cortex to cause such repeatable origins and paths? To answer that, I had to get a precise 3D map of my specific cortex and correlate them. My data earned me MRI brain scans, which I converted to 3D printer data and printed out this perfect copy of my left hemisphere. Actually, this is only the white matter core after the surface gray matter skin was digitally stripped away to better see into folds. I then painted a silicone skin on just the visual lobe, replicating the gray matter. When removed, it makes a flexible model that allows me to open a fold or sulcus to see how tight it is and to flatten it with minimal stretching to match my 2D aura maps of the 3D visual field. How vision is represented on the surface of the brain after being transformed. First, half the visual field is sent separately to each side of the brain after the retina has inverted it. The radius of the image is converted to a logarithmic scale, allocating more neurons to central vision. Peripheral allocation is compressed because less detail is required there. Central allocation is expanded for greater detail resolution, and the grid is then scaled to match dimensions of the visual cortex. An overlay, matching landmarks, shows that aura paths follow a fold, and their origins are in its tightest kinks. This shows that something unique is going on in the hidden depths of the calcarine sulcus, with disturbances that are too small, too fast, and too unpredictable to be caught on a functional MRI scan. But what are they? First, years of continual literature searching gave me many useful known facts about the visual cortex, such as 1. Vision process has been well mapped, and the first stage, or V1, patterns is largest and mostly in the calcarine sulcus, or fold. 2. Vision distribution is disproportionate on the cortex, with the greatest allocation central, diminishing into the periphery. Ordinary neuron firing, that sound, causes potassium to oscillate about 3 millimoles concentration, according to Somjen. However, if it rises to a threshold of about 8 to 12 millimoles, it becomes unstable and can surge to nearly 50 millimoles, shutting down firing and vision by driving a runaway brainstorm of waste such as potassium, which is a known lab trigger of migraine chemical surge disturbance or epileptic seizure. I found other scientific discoveries not obviously related to migraine, but useful to my analysis, such as these familiar but antiquated Golgi illustrations of neurons, which imply sponge concentrations in the cortex. However, recent research by Lichtman proves that neuron packing density is actually over 87%, as shown in this 5 millimeter cube, and normal cyclic swelling of cells can increase packing up to 96% during chemical surge disturbance, or CSD. Neuro waste created by the energy of ordinary mental processes has to be cleared out. A Nedergaard recently discovered a paravascular, or adjacent, glymphatic pulse pumping system, which is many times more effective outside the veins and is most active during sleep. These capillary blockage videos show in the center where blood cells and platelets are proceeding single file or stopping, which can either starve neurons of oxygen going in or going out, reduce the clearance of toxic waste. In the first stage of vision, or V1, listen to the firing of specific neurons, which are edge direction detectors, the X's. These make the most primitive identifications, such as between basic shapes like angles or curves. Here, in real-time action, vision uses these orientation pinwheel neurons to scan the visual field and create objects. Wait, that looks like the scintillations in my auras. Maybe it is. Sleep is still more effective than the best medications, triptans, according to thousands of users. Yet nothing better has been discovered since 1991, in spite of millions of dollars in research. Proper sleep has been recommended since the 1850s. Aura origins on the cortex are found to be roughly the size of the vascular field fed by a single arteriole, which is shown here by Woolsey. Plotting aura frequency or days free can identify effects, such as medications, or test my hypothesis of sticky blood. For example, I have a hyperclotting gene mutation that has never been correlated with migraine in a large sample, but my own A/B test of an antiplatelet totally eliminated partial auras, which are 90% of all, and also my retinal clouding amaurosis. What all this implies about the assumed 4 stages of my migraine. Priming gradually accumulates neurotoxic waste in a tight sulcus or fold, like sweat in an armpit. Triggering can be due to a vascular spasm or brief capillary blockage, like flushing sponges down a toilet. Propagation flows along tightly packed neurons in a sulcus, the aura, like a flash flood down an arroyo. And pain begins when this surge of neurotoxic waste hits the sensitive cortex covering, the meninges, like a spray of mace. An engineer could express this as an equation which adds or subtracts excess waste as a function of time and area. But that would require quantification of variables. In the future, perhaps that's possible, given an ability to continually monitor neurochemistry. As mentioned at the start, there are many types and causes of migraine at different times in different people, mostly due to poor clearance of waste. So improved circulation is key, either in capillaries or bulk flow in the lymphatic system. This theory has the power to explain many migraine puzzles, and it suggests other possible treatments.
So how can you stop your pain? Either you just wait for a migraine and treat it with painkillers and accept their cost and negative side effects, or with foresight, prevent them by taking action at lower or zero cost with some familiar, common sense lifestyle changes, like better cardio health, proper nutrition, exercise, and proper sleep. The side effects, the positive side effects, are health and longevity. So has this been a waste of time? Aren't these suggestions obvious? But like smoking or obesity, it takes willpower, and only the fittest will survive. I'm not an MD, I'm just an old engineer documenting what I've done without profit or fame while I'm still mentally fit. I've demonstrated free scientific evidence of what works, and I have hundreds of more pages of supporting evidence. Even though I could engineer other experiments to provide more proof, like predicting which areas I could light up on an fMRI scan, or do surveys like relating antiplatelets to migraine, I'm satisfied that I answered all my questions. I've eliminated all the pain and most of the auras by better waste clearance, although I still have the random cell death trigger. So it's game over to me. I have seen migraine, and it is gone.